Good morning. Thanks for clicking on the video. This is going to be a video about how to deal with live food, or how I deal with live food when I'm feeding in the house. These are two different cultures of wingless fruit flies. You can see the different sizes. I'll put the Latin names. I won't try and pronounce it, but I'll put the Latin names on the screen. Those are the little ones. Those are the bigger ones. These are the two varieties that I have experience with, so I'm gonna just speak to them. This is what a more mature culture looks like. That's normal that it gets all brown looking like that. What's not normal is you do not want to see mold growing on the food. That's the food and water down at the bottom. It's basically sort of the consistency of applesauce. You can also make your own. I have raised fruit flies on apples, bananas, orange, and other things. But what I've discovered is I sometimes end up with mold before I get the full benefit of the fruit flies. And the commercial product has a mold inhibitor. And I like that idea to be on the safe side. You can purchase these canisters with a starter culture, and they will produce flies for quite a while, and I'll show you how I deal with them. But I'm also going to make a culture and show you that. So I save, when these get old, I save them, clean them really thoroughly, and then I have them available to recreate. You can also buy kits online. Okay, let's go make some. If you get a kit, there are good directions with them. They suggest using reverse osmosis water, RO water. I used distilled water. So I need boiling water. What I found is, people who cook probably know this, but you have to add the powdery stuff to the water. If you add the water to the powdery stuff, you can't ever really break up the lumps. And it seems like it doesn't work as well for the fruit flies if it's not completely dissolved. So there's a pro tip. When you mix this up, it's going to be super hot. You glump it into here. You can't mix in here. The boiling water will kind of melt the plastic-ish. So you have to mix it somewhere else and then dump it in. Hot, 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 hot. I don't know if you can see. Okay, that's the end of my patience for taking out lumps. So, by definition, that's good enough. When you follow the instructions, it produces about that much batter in the bottom. That's plenty. That's Peach singing again. The next thing I need to do is put in the Excelsior. Honestly, I don't know if this has multiple functions other than just being a place for the bugs to live. Here's a tip. When you go to close the lid, you want the lid to really close. That's enough of a gap for the little ones to find their way out. So, ball it up really good and make sure that it's not hanging over the rim. Okay, now how do you use these guys? So if it's out in the aviary, I typically shake off some of the bugs onto my little island. I'll show you a video of that. So this has water in it. There's my little island, and I just crack this open, shake some bugs on. They crawl around, they jump into the water. The birds eat them off of here or the water. That works great. When the canisters are at the end of their life, I just open the lid and let the birds eat out of them directly. But the bugs can escape. They do escape, but they escape in the aviary. I don't care. So when I'm feeding in the house, I use a little different technique. I make a big ice cube in the bottom of this bowl, keep it in the freezer, and I use it to stun the live food temporarily, whether it's bugs or mealworms or grubs. That knocks them off the lid. That keeps most of them in there. Check this, double check it again, check it, make sure it's closed. Okay, so we're closed. So these guys are stunned. They are not dead. If I want to freeze dry them, I will put it in the freezer, and then I can feed them freeze-dried, or if I end up with extra, then I can feed them freeze-dried bugs. If I want them to enjoy actually literally live food, then I create a little dish of water and I shake them in. Now they're still stunned for the moment, but they come back to life. And then they're animated. They make the water vibrate and move and whatnot. In other words, they're only mostly dead. And then there we go, see? Scooching around. You'll start to see they come back to life. And then the surface tension of the water traps them in the water. If they're not stunned first, they have a lot of energy, and if they get to the edge, they can climb out. But I've discovered if they're mostly dead, then they don't generally escape. Now, I've also found that once the birds get used to eating live food out of the water, the dead food, the freeze-dried flies, are taken almost as well, because every time they peck one out of the water, it moves the water and it makes the flies come alive. So it kind of fools them into thinking that dead food is live food. So when I get surplus of the fruit flies, I pour them onto the big ice cube and put them in the freezer for 5 minutes or so, and then they freeze dry, and they are actually dead. And then I can just either scoop them in, float them in water, or I can just feed them in the bowl, just like that, or I could add them to egg food, whatever you want to do. That's what I do with them, so I don't waste them, and it works almost as well as the live. Here's some dry bugs for you guys, little bugs. I think I have noticed that the birds like the smaller fruit flies better, the melanogaster, if I pronounce that right. But that may be just because they have more experience eating that style. Okay, this is the hardest part of the process. These are cool now. So I have to transfer, they say 50 to 100 bugs from an existing culture into a new one. And I'm going to lose some bugs in the process. So if you see me doing this, that's me killing off bugs. Here we go. Gonna get them closed and then start killing ones. If you do this outside, you will not worry about so much about how many bugs. I only lost 2. Can you see? There's my new little culture starting. Make sure you double check. I can't tell you how many times I have not actually closed the lid properly. Okay, so I store my cultures in a box because I don't want them to dry out too much too quickly. That is how I feed the live wingless fruit flies. They're pretty innocuous if they get away. It's not the worst infestation you could have, and they're good nutrition for the birds, is my understanding. I also use this technique of using the water as either a barrier or as a surface tension for feeding mosquito larvae. Just float them in the water. Be aware that some larvae crawl under the water just fine. This black soldier fly larva, they are not contained by water. So do your research and experiments yourself. In addition, termites don't get a chance to be fed live either in the aviary or in the house, but basically they get turned into termite ice cubes, and then the ice cube goes in a dish, and as it melts, the termites become available to the birds and they pick them out of the ice and the water. But they are completely dead. Some of the reptile feeders look to how they deal with live food. For example, they have little dishes that have a curl over the top, and it prevents the mealworms from escaping. Now, keep in mind, when a bird picks up a mealworm, if it's too feisty for them or too big for them, boom, they can pitch it and it's out there in your living room somewhere. So you can't depend on that as a technique to make sure stuff doesn't escape. There are also other ways to disable live food. You can microwave it, you can boil them, you can cut mealworms in half. I've found that other techniques that sort of disable the live food can also help it spoil, and sometimes the birds are not interested in it. So I find that this idea of sort of stunning them with the freezing, either completely or partially, works better for me. So, hope you enjoyed the video and are inspired to do some experiments with live food.